Any songs stick out in particular that came in a certain way and it ended up in the final mix totally different than when it came in?
Well, of course, there were many songs like that. You know, everyone remembers Be My Baby. Boom, 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 bang, boom, 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 bang. Was one of those things. I have never known if it was a written part or the fact that I'm such a good faker. One of the things you learn quick in recording, if you make a mistake, do it in the same place every 4 or 8 or 16 bars, and it becomes a part of the song. And so when we're doing Be My Baby, all of a sudden we're doing Strangers in the Night, Frank Sinatra, record of the year that year, brought him back. All of a sudden I'm doing the same beat. And if you listen to it, you'll hear it. Strangers in the night, boom, ba, 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 boom, ba. None of that was written. So there is a song there where we were just going to straight play it, Strangers in the Night, and I just couldn't help but feel that after listening to it. It was almost like Be My Baby. And of course, that particular beat became infamous with rock and roll, and that was the late 50s, early 60s with Phil Spector.
You guys were instrumental in helping conceive the Wall of Sound.
Absolutely, absolutely. Phil was a very close friend of mine. My daughter was his secretary. When we did, Phil used to call us the Wall of Sound. Everyone else called us the Wrecking Crew. And we felt like a wrecking crew when we were in there with Phil at the infamous Gold Star Studios. And we would start a song a certain way, and for some reason I'd say, if we were to, I had a perfect example. The Eve of Destruction. Remember the song,
Yes,
Barry
yes.
McGuire?
Mm-hmm.
The Eve of Destruction. To me, when I listened to it, it sounded like a bunch of soldiers marching like a dirge. And it wasn't that. It was a regular singing rock song. And I said, I have an idea. Let me do this. And I just started out with a drum roll. Brum, 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 brum. Just slowly. It was almost like you could see this line of soldiers. And Barry McGuire was singing his heart out with the song, and that became the song. And to this day, when I hear that song, I get goosebumps thinking about it. But that's the way it was, and that's because I had whatever producers, and in that case, I believe the producer was either Lou Adler or Bones Howe, one of the greatest producers in the world. And
Yeah, good
that's
guys.
another perfect example when we did the Fifth Dimension. Everything we did, whatever we felt, we did with Joe Osborne on bass and Larry Knechtel on keyboards. Well, my particular discography is just approaching 6,000. Just phonograph records. That's not counting movies, television, pilots, commercials.
And vinyl's making a comeback, so
Vinyl is making a big comeback right now, too. And unfortunately, they talk about the big C, which is cancer. Unfortunately, I, like so many others, had to go through the big D, which was D for divorce. And unfortunately, I lost an awful lot of my gold record awards. I had over 150 of them. I lost all my vinyl. I lost everything. Everything had to be sold because I was a hard head. I refused to have to pay alimony to this person who did what they did to me. And I just said, I'll sell everything and I'll get enough cash to pay her off and goodbye. And it was an 11-year marriage, and she got a lot of money. And recently, she even tried to get back with me. And I said, are you nuts? And I hung up on her.
so that didn't get the Hal Blaine rubber stamp for sure.
Well, the rubber stamp is another story. It's a simple story. When we got our first calls on movie calls, the librarian would come out and put down 4 or 5 feet of music parts for a 70, 80, 90, 110-piece orchestra. And if some reason, and it happened before to me, if some reason they called you back 2 weeks later or a week later and they said, we lost you in the mix, or somehow that tape got destroyed. In those days it was 2 and 4 track before they really went up to hundreds of tracks and Pro Tools. In those days, you had to read your part and overdub on whatever it was they lost. And unfortunately, there was not a librarian there to hand you your original drum, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 20 music cues for this movie or this TV show. It was always that. I mean, I remember doing Martin Mull's very first HBO special, and it was HBO's very first special. And Martin Mull was a funny guy, and I went in there with some great musicians. We were the backup band. We did it in Hollywood at the Roxy, I believe it was, and they paid me double scale. And about a week later, they called me and said, well, somehow we lost the drums. Please come back in, and we'll redo everything. Well, I don't know. That was a 6 or 7 and maybe an 8-piece band. Well, with my rubber stamp that I learned at 20th Century Fox, as I was slowly going through all the music looking for my drum parts, I saw a strange-looking thing. It almost looked like a cucumber with a nostril. And I was asking some of the guys, the contractor and some of the people, and they said, oh, that's Manny Klein. Manny Klein, in those days, was the lead trumpet player, brass player at all the studios, all the music, in all the movies, and that was his rubber stamp, because there were times when he had to overdub something or add something or whatever, and he discovered that by fanning through the music, he could spot his rubber stamp. And so I said, I'm going to do the same thing after spending hours at Fox. I got a little rubber stamp. It says, Hal Blaine strikes again. And that's it. And a number of times through the years, I've been called in to redo something that they lost, whatever, and I would just sit there, fan through the music, boom, there it is, boom, there it is, and I'd get my 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 cues, and I had them. And I could be out of there in a matter of, a couple hours.